Liam, thanks for your time, as always. Dive in with some fitness news. Papa Jallo, how are we looking?
Not good news. Bad injury to his quad, so he's going to be out for a good few months. So yeah, very disappointing ultimately.
Surgery route?
Yeah.
Has he had the surgery yet? Or?
No, close, so be soon.
And that is, it continues a theme. It was only this time last week you're telling us Matthias and Ben are out. Thankfully, not for that length of time, but off the back of a Mankell Thorson as well. I know you wouldn't hide behind those as excuses for, the broader kind of struggles we've had as a club this season on the pitch, but it doesn't help, does it, when you're losing key attacking players like that?
Of course it doesn't. We want as many available, to pick from as possible, and you look at game wide. I think large number of injuries, and the challenge is always, there's a huge amount of work that goes into finding out why. And it's always difficult to pinpoint one factor. I think there's loads of reasons behind it. I think there's injuries that are part of it, in terms of you're going to pick up contact injuries. Matthias, a freak landing, and then there's obviously other bits where we have to look in-house to make sure that we be better at the programme we run and understand why. And like I said, there's bits going in behind the scenes where we have to be better.
So, I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth there. Are you sort of looking at that in terms of Papa's injury then? That maybe his load game to game, what you've been asked to do?
Yeah, no, I don't. It wasn't a loading issue, I don't think, with Papa when you look at it. And again, I think it's really important. It's on everybody. We all have to look at what we deliver and why. And again, when you look at Papa, he's obviously new to the league, but I think in terms of the load going into it wasn't an issue at all. There was no flags, no issues with it, and yeah, unfortunately, it was too much for him.
And just for the lad himself, as much as for you and your coaching staff, there was a player who just shown coming into a new league and the adaptation process, but he had shown already that he could offer something in the final third of the pitch. Yeah,
I've been really pleased with how he'd adapted and settled into life here. I thought he'd shown some really exciting moments, and he's writing him off completely. He'll get back, and I think it's an opportunity now where we can increase the work off the pitch. His English is adapting here, is still learning the game, etc. And he's someone that it's an opportunity. He can come back bigger and stronger from it. So hugely disappointing to lose him, but someone that we've got for a period of time that we'll make sure that we get back right.
You might not be able to say, but when you say months, are you in your own mind not thinking any time this side of 2025?
I'd have to, it's going to be a considerable amount of time, to be fair. And I'm always conscious of putting exact dates and time frames on it, because ultimately you have to work off how they respond. But yeah, you're talking 3-4 months.
Moving on from Papa then, Kenny McLean, how's he looking for this week in terms of contention?
Yeah, he's progressing. He's getting better. I think Kenny's so experienced, knows his body so well that we have to work off of how he feels a little bit as well. So there's a possibility for the weekend, but we have to see how he responds in the next few days. Ultimately, he's been sore at the start of the week, but there's a possibility for the weekend.
Is he still, like you mapped out this time last week? Is he not able to do all the sessions at the moment? You're just trying to sort of phase him back into top level intensity training?
Yeah, he's not done much this week, to be honest. I think it's one of those we've tried to let it settle, treatment, medication, and then working off how he feels. And it's one of those. He's, like I said, he's such an experienced pro. He knows his body so well that it's a daily thing to have a chat with him, see how he feels before reintegrating him.
Actually, on Mahova, I know you said in an ideal world you'd like to maybe point him at some 21s minutes, but given the issues you've got that side of the squad as well, is he coming into your thoughts now maybe for Stoke, or is that still a little bit too premature?
He's definitely a lot closer. I think he's definitely a lot closer. He's trained the last few days as well, so he's looking good. I think it's one of those where there's the ideal world and the ideal plan, but there's also the fact that we are a little bit lighter on bodies, and he's been really impressive in training as well. So again, I think it's see how he responds. He's obviously had a few really good days training, and we'll see how he responds. And there's a possibility for the weekend.
Other than obviously the ones we're aware of, anything else? I know it's 2 or 3 days out yet in terms of fitness issues that you're monitoring for Stoke.
No, I don't think so. I think as was.
Clearly, we're down here to discuss Stoke, but off the back of his first chance to speak to you since the Wrexham game, or post-match Wrexham. I mean, you were very honest, very candid post-match. Said you'd felt a little bit let down, and implicit in what you were saying was that it's time to deliver now. I mean, is that very much now since that point been the tone with the messages you've delivered to the players here behind closed doors?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think I'm not going to sit here and come up with more words and reasons. We know we have to be better. We know the weekend wasn't acceptable, and look, a great group of lads. I think in terms of, and I see them every day, the work they put in, how they apply themselves in training. I think I'd say that the disappointment probably came from the weekend was that it was the behaviour side more than anything. And that ultimately is what got us a point at Coventry: the willingness to run, the willingness to defend the box, leaving it all out there. And again, that was the bit from the weekend that, as a collective, me, the lads, that wasn't good enough. So we have to accept that. We have to own it. We can't hide from that. No excuse, no finger pointing. We have to look in-house first and understand we have to be a lot better. And it's, like I said, it's something that we had a chat with on Monday, and the response in training's been excellent. And then we have to take that into the game at the weekend, that bravery, that confidence, that intensity, the aggression, the purpose, all the behaviour stuff. And that has to be has to be there in every single game, every single time we step on the pitch and represent the club.
You say there, I mean, you've had the response you were looking for in terms of on the training pitches, but I'm sure you would have wanted to hear from the players as well. Were you happy with what you got back from them in terms of what they felt had gone wrong on last Saturday?
Yeah, players are really honest. I think that's the biggest bit, and it's like I said, we're at a state we keep talking about it, and you'd love to come in and the season starts, and it's a nice smooth trajectory to where we want to get to as a group, but I've been here before. I understand it doesn't always look like that. There's bumps along the way. There's, I know there'll be some good moments. There'll be some challenging moments. It's that a little bit in the minute where we have to. That's what gels you. That's what sticks. You pull together on those moments, and we'll come out the other side stronger for it if we're honest. If we accept that, and take responsibility. And I think that's the biggest bit. No one can hide. We have to be braver. We have to step up. When at home pressure cranks up a little bit, we have to step up and relish that and not fear it. And I think that's really important.
I was going to ask you about that, and you've touched on it again. That you have parallels maybe in your other senior coaching roles. I mean, is there anything actually comparable to some of the challenges you've faced here so far? Would you say?
Yeah, elements to it. I think anytime you step in with a new group, they're different. So again, I think there's bits that we have to adapt to them and find out about, and there's bits that we, like I said, the behaviour stuff that are non-negotiable with any group that I work with is that, how we work, how we apply ourselves. And of course, I think in terms of when you're developing a group, for me, I want to develop a group that sustains success over a period of time. And like I said, I think you have to go through some challenging experiences. And I know, having seen the level that the group can produce, the work ethic behind the scenes, I think the way we'll go about developing relationships and trust, and looking at a performance at a weekend, going, that's not us, that's not good enough. That's an experience that we can use going forward to know what we don't want to look like. And they're the bits that for me allow us to progress and get better and evolve over time.
I mean, you said, and clearly with Papa's news, you're going to have to make at least one enforced change. But you said there would be changes off the back of Wrexham. Is that kind of where your head is at now in terms of setting aside the enforced change you might have to make, that you need to talk to? You highlighted Gibbsy and Schwartau when they came on and the impact that they brought to the game. Is that kind of looking forward to Stoke now, where you're at in terms of selection? Without giving me your 11, unless you want to.
Yeah, I've got a few more sleepless nights before I give the lads the team. I think, it's one of the hardest part of the job I know I've said to you before is around the team selection, and it is that, especially with some younger lads. There's elements where you have to play people through tough periods, but there's also a time frame where you then have to take people out and create accountability that way. So I haven't picked the team yet. I think in terms of it, we've had some solid days training. I think it's now a case of we've done our work on Stoke, but making that decision, I think it's really important sometimes not to chase change or too much change. I think you can then break up certain bits that need a little bit of time to progress and get better. But at the same point, that's the bit I want the lads to step up and grab it and own it and relish it. I think that's the biggest bit. We're fortunate to do what we do, and the second that the game starts on Saturday, whoever's on the pitch or whatever subs come on, show intent, show purpose, show energy, show positivity. No matter what the scoreline or how the game's going.
Prior to obviously the news that you've delivered about Papa today, I was going to ask you about Antti Cernach, and because he was quite candid, he did a bit with Sam over the international break and said, look, he needs to be better. He knows he needs to deliver a bit more. And would you concur with that? That it's not meant to focus solely on him because it's obviously collective, but there's a player who came in, had a first season in England, showed a lot of promise in terms of his numbers were good for his age as well, and hasn't really happened for him the start of this season.
Not quite yet, but I'm confident it will in terms of the qualities I know he's got. And again, I think naturally when a young player like that who solid first season. It's it's not always easy to go and replicate that the second season because people are more aware of you, know your strengths, know your game a little bit. But it's one of those. The only way you change that, and that's the bit I spoke about after the weekend. What's your default when you're having that? That because every player in whatever level will have moments in their career where they have a couple of poor games or games where they're not at the level they want to be. The only way you get through that, and not just in football, in life in general, is by getting your head down and working and backing yourself and pushing through it. And that's what we have to develop and build. And they're the bits in terms of the trust, the relationships that you form over time. When we have a tough period at the weekend, how do we respond? What we have to do going forward, collectively and individually, is look internally and pull each other through it. And that's the biggest bit.
I mean, you said off the back of the game that you might need to strip it back to basics this coming week now. I mean, what has that looked like in practice for you in the last few days?
I don't want to give away the game plan and the work. I think it comes back to it. I think if you look at it, like I said, full of praise for the lads after Middlesbrough and Coventry in terms of behaviours. I think that's the biggest bit that ultimately, let us down a little bit at the weekend that wasn't acceptable. Is that it's the intensity, it's the the purpose, the bravery, the responsibility, owning it, and not waiting for somebody else. And I think that's the biggest bit. We want everybody that steps on the pitch to feel that they're able to do that. And I think that is what we'll be looking for at the weekend.
Better on the ball. I think that was another sort of aspect you wanted to see from your team. I mean, what does that look like for you as the person who's putting this team out on the pitch? Is that the tempo? Is that maybe more, as you say, brave, progressive in the passing? What elements of that need to be better in terms of being better on the ball?
Probably all the above. I think it's the consistency of doing the simple things really well, the speed of thought as well as speed of the ball, the bravery to ask questions and not be passive with it. I think that's the biggest bit. I watched Man City at the weekend, not being afraid to sometimes, when you're up against it, spin it in behind and counter press it and chase it, or put it in the box and compete and then look to land on seconds. I think it's probably a bit of everything, and that's where I'd say we're at a little bit at the moment. It's just that consistency piece is chasing that of what does it look like, how do we make it better. But like I said, the biggest bit it's not necessarily keep talking about it. It's now delivering. I think that we're all at that stage where it's we can keep talking about what needs to be better and where we're at, but ultimately we have to turn up, all of us, on Saturday and deliver.
And to be fair, that's kind of, you've been very consistent in that message from the start. You said this is a process, but it might be a process, but you need to win games on that journey as well. Yeah,
definitely is. We've got a long way to go to get where we want to as a group, but along that way you have to keep chipping away at it, and you have to keep, there has to be elements within the performance that show you're progressing and getting better. And that was probably the frustration from everybody at the weekend, which is the bit that, like I said, I get to see the lads. I know the level they can hit. For me, it's now making sure we find that more consistently in what we know is such a difficult division. So I want to move on now from Saturday. I want to take the learning from it, but I want us to step on and go and give absolutely everything. Go and leave it all out there, and the outcome will be the outcome. I think it's more a case of whatever it be, let's make sure we leave everything on the pitch and leave no stone unturned, and have no regrets in everything that we do on Saturday.
In terms of that looking forward, again, I thought it was interesting, you sort of referenced the structure maybe. I think you said you can't go from we're attacking today and it lurches the other end and Vlad's needing to pull out a save. So in terms of moving forward, is that an area you're looking at with your coaching staff, the structure of what you're trying to do in and out of possession?
Yeah, and that's underpinned by focus. I think you can have the structure, but if people are outside the game watching in and not quite switched on, then you don't get to structure. And I think that's the bit. It's making sure that you stay focused, and that's what pressure, emotion can stop you doing that. I think in terms of you get caught up in it rather than actually focusing on doing your job and what you need to do. So they're bits that we've looked at this week. They're bits that we will continually get better as we get success, and look at it, we analyse it and make sure that we have to work hard to improve it.
I mean, he's clearly proven himself to be a very good shot stopper, but is there any part of you're a bit concerned the amount of good chances you're giving up in terms of that structural focus?
Yeah, we've given up too many chances, definitely, and it's then how do you stop it, and they're the bits that we're looking at all the time, definitely.
Moving on, Stoke. Mark Robins, it feels to me, maybe on the outside looking in, there's a few similarities. He had a difficult period when he went in there back end of last season, and albeit still early, but it looks like he's had a good start to the season, and that's the process that you talk about. Yeah,
and I remember we played them quite early on when Mark joined there last season, and similar, they had a tough period, and that's what with Mark is that he'll stay quite level, he'll stay quite calm, he'll get the group working, he'll get them organised, and that's similarities of what we've got to do right now. And yeah, they're in a decent spot, but it's when we should be desperate to go out there and respond off the back of last weekend. We should be desperate to go and pull the shirt on and try and correct it, try and put everything right, and try and go and deliver a really strong performance.
And just on Mark Robbins, I mean, as a younger coach making your way, and you've been at this level now for a few seasons, but there's a guy who has got a real body of coaching work at this level. And as we know, when you were asked about Phil Parkinson last week, that longevity in the game underlines what a very good coach he is at this level.
Yeah, incredible what he did at Coventry. Incredible, when you look at not just the on pitch, but also some of the stuff he had to deal with off pitch. Sorry, incredible what he did there. And I don't need to sit here and talk about how good a career he's had and how good a record he's got. That speaks for itself. Everyone can see that. So someone I have a huge amount of respect for.
I just final point. As much as clearly off the back of what happened at Carrow Road last weekend, there's a desire to put that right. But you're going away from home again. In the last 3 games, 7 points from 9. There's a good foundation there in terms of away from home in this league to build on.
Yeah, and we have to use that. We have to take the positives from the previous, performances, results away from home, and go, and like I keep saying, go and own our own performance. Forget everything around it and outside it. We have to hold ourselves to account to what level we want to hit, and that's that'll be a big bit for the weekend.
Cheers, Liam. Good luck.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Andy, anything?
Hi, Liam. Just going back to Papa, I know hindsight's wonderful, of course it is, but do you regret not getting some extra bodies in that area in the summer? Maybe a lone winger, for example?
Now, if you look at it, we've got plenty of bodies. We've just got too many that are unavailable. Ultimately, I think that, and also it wasn't a loading thing. Papa was actually playing on merit, and because he'd actually performed to a good level, I think he'd done really well. So, it's hugely disappointing to lose him. But again, I don't look at it as being a case as a result of not having enough bodies.
Jogan McCarmer obviously scored his first goal. He's obviously very new to this level, but he has impressed, hasn't he? Do you think he is ready to start if needed to?
Yeah, I think I've been really impressed with the impact he's had when coming on. I've been impressed with how he's applied himself in training. Got into him a bit. He should have scored the header as well. I think it was a really good opportunity. But delighted for him, and he gives us something a little bit different in terms of the profile, how he plays. Great character around the changing room. He's adjusting really well to the club and what he's been asked to do, and I've been really impressed with him. So I think he's someone that's we should all be excited by. But ultimately it will be a case of continue doing what he's doing, and when he gets the opportunity, which I'm sure he will at some point, grab it.
Yeah, these injuries they're not stuffing out the fans, of course they will, and results have been a little bit inconsistent as well. Do you feel with Stoke, how important is that just to lift the mood a little bit after what's been a really difficult week for you?
I'd love to. Trust me, it'd make my life 10 times easier, right? I'm desperate to do well. I think that's the biggest bit. And the lads are as well. I don't think any of the lads go out and intentionally perform like they do at the weekend. I think what we have to do is create a platform where when they're up against it a little bit, what do they fall back on? Do they know? And that's the bit that comes down to, for me, what's your default setting? And it has to be you fight, you run, you compete, you do that side of it. And then you take responsibility and be brave and play forward with purpose. And they're the bits that we have to fall back on. So we know where we're at. We know we've got a lot of work to do. We're sticking together. I think that's the important bit. Like I said a little while ago, I'd love to have come in and it'd be a fantastic, nice, smooth trajectory. We're playing some fantastic football and winning every game. But I've also been in a position where I know that's not always the reality. And ultimately what changes that is, like I said, is the behaviours, is sticking together, is not hiding from it, not just talking about it, is owning it, and then actually actioning it in game and taking responsibility. And that's the biggest bit. I'll 100% take responsibility for my part in it, as will the lads. And as a collective, is how we change it. I think that's the biggest bit.
I was going to ask, have the lads taken responsibility? Have you seen people stepping up this week and kind of showing a bit of leadership?
Yeah, definitely. There's been a few lads. I think seen it in the training pitch yesterday and today. There's definitely been lads stepping up and owning aspects of it. And that, like I said, the lads were super gutted about the weekend, as they should be, as I was as well, as I think was quite clear in my post-match. But the only thing that changes it, and that's why it's so important, you have to accept it. It wasn't good enough. You have to be honest with yourself. You then have to understand how do you change it, and that's by not carrying forward any negativity, any emotional hangover. You have to park it. You have to move on. You have to take the lesson from it and make sure that we rectify it at the weekend.
And like I said, you want to move on, but can this Wrexham game can it almost be a turning point? Can this be the launch of something special? Do you think?
If you use the experience right, and if you step up and own it, I think it can be definitely. And like I said, I've been there before with it. I think it's something that we reflect on the experiences as well as just we jump to tactics and results. But I think it's also like the experience and the learning as a group. Like I said, I've happily defended aspects before of Middlesbrough, Coventry aspects of those games where we've not performed how we want, but the behaviours have been good, and that's the biggest bit. I think the bare minimum, like I've said before, that the fans should expect to see is a team turn up and give absolutely everything. And that's the bit that we have to make sure that we start with on Saturday.
Brilliant, thanks, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liam, can I just ask about Jeffrey Schlupp? Sort of where is he fitness-wise now?
Yeah, he's been reintegrated into training this week, so he's another one. We've modified aspects. He's done certain bits, so we'll see how he is off the back of yesterday and today, two quite tough working days. So we'll see how he feels off the back of that, and we'll then make a decision.
How would you weigh up in terms of starting? Because obviously he's not been out for too long, but he hasn't had too many minutes. So would it be too early for that? Or
yeah, and he's not had a huge amount of training either. So again, I think it possibly a little bit early for him.
Thanks.